Hello, T. Sorry for the angry phone call, but if you were in my position and you heard the news of how PDD is being done, I'm pretty sure you would be pretty ticked off as well. Um, the fact is that I do get PDD because I was grandfathered back in the day before Klein came along. But when Klein basically lawn mowed all the services towards PDD, and as well as the programs that were similar to Peak all over Alberta. Many programs either learned to specialize and adapt to whatever situation that came along, which meant people like me that had above 70 IQs ended up falling through the cracks, even though that, as we all know, IQ and neurological delays or cognitive delays have no part in IQ. And all PDD does is look at those stupid IQ tests and say, I'm sorry, because you're this way, you don't get this, or that. Those that are grandfathered like me, yeah, we can get all the services we want, but yeah, uh, if you live in a place like Edmonton, we're supposed to be the capital. We're supposed to have better services and better results for someone like me, but we don't. How I know is because I've been to Chrysalis. Great system if you're lower functioning, ever able to have the ability to live on your own, let alone discerning the realities or the functionalities that society throws at you. Never mind, um, able to cope without having a mommy or a daddy or um, in many ways, I am like the average person. I'm married, I drive, I have pets, I live on my own. That means that I have no trustee whatsoever, quite capable of doing much of what society throws at me. And but there's a side to my neurological cognitive delay which does not allow me to be the average 44-year-old woman. As a matter of fact, diagnosed, I am about 16 years old mentally. And for some of us, those of you that are grandparents or parents of adult children, can you imagine your 16-year-old child being out on her own without any kind of support? The question I ask you is, would you expect her to do what you do as an adult that is experienced in life and knows the realities and the gambits to jump through, let alone understanding society's little invisible rules, such as tact, diplomacy, and the etiquettes that go along with it? What happens if that child is me, where their disability doesn't allow for you to develop skills like tact, diplomacy, or soft skills? And that's what they're forever pushing in my face in programs and or resources. I've been unemployed for 10 years because of it. To ask me to magically develop these things is like asking a person with physical limitations or has a wheelchair to get up and walk tomorrow. Are they going to grow new legs? No, I'm not going to grow new neurons either. Since we are so hell bent on these little rules and tactics, what happens if the person can't? Why not teach the person how to communicate effectively, since what I have is a social disability or a social delay in which it is hard for us to conceive or read body language, let alone who's taking us for granted or taking us for a ride because we can't read body language? That's 90% of all language, no matter the culture. If you cannot read body language, how do I read you? When it comes to PDD and proper programs, for which means for me individualized programs based on my diagnosis and where I sit in life, not some stupid, drummed up, pretty little box that I'm supposed to fit my round ass into? How about developing programs similar to Peak and bring them into the forefront? And then, on top of that, do what Denmark and, say, BC and Vancouver Island and parts of Calgary are doing when it comes to disabilities. They're creating self-sustained communities for which are based on partnerships with the cooperative foundations and or associations, for which there is a gas station and grocery stores and even restaurants. That means jobs are being created, but you're also learning how to be in environments for which induce socialization, communication, and as well as getting paid. Your rent does not go to some rich bastard's pocket. Instead, it goes back into the community to develop more programs or better services to help people just like me. I want to toss in a lesson of peak vocational, bring in vocation services like Peak into Edmonton and or other surrounding communities. And then I want to unite that with things like an actual living, breathing community for which people like me can live. That way, we have services and providers on hand 24/7 if we should need them. Right now, while I live in Edmonton, I am more afraid of my future than I am of having a freaking meltdown in West Edmonton Mall. Because I do not understand the value of money. Therefore, I wouldn't know how to bank my way out of a maze. What happens if my husband should get sick or die tomorrow? Am I going to be able to understand the value and the red tape value for which I would need to deal with financial and proving that my husband's freaking dead to some bureaucratic idiot? Number one. Number two, am I going to be able to function enough to assess and organize a funeral and or care practices for my husband for which I can barely understand the care practices for myself and get them, for which is almost non-existent. Right now I have a Band-Aid service for which is better known as an HCA, healthcare aid, people that are trained to basically wipe your ass and do ROM, range of motion, if you have physical limitations and or limitations for which cognitively you will never be able to do, such as those that will never leave a group home, may not have the ability to wipe their own butt or clean. I know how to clean. I know how to live on my own. Blah, blah, blah. I'm married, for God's sake. All I want to do is take what my husband is doing for me as an advocate and or whatever and put it on somebody else's lap so that he can be my best friend and my husband and be there on an emotional base rather than more than what he should be. I don't want to be sleeping with my worker for the rest of my life. I need the proper care for the proper diagnosis. Is that so hard to ask? I want to be employed because I do not qualify for AISH because my husband makes too much. Is that too much to ask for? I don't think so. These are necessary for me to navigate your world. My equivalent of a wheelchair for a person who cannot walk is a disability skills coach. People that are trained like the ones that are in peak vocational services that help on a community level and or work level to not only educate bosses, but also help me. Edmonton has nothing like this. It's almost non-existent. The only place that will and can help me is in Lethbridge. Unfortunately, moving is expensive, and I'm not about to divorce my husband anytime soon just to get the help I need. And I'm not going to ask him, the only provider for us to have a home and a roof over our head, to quit his job at the museum, to move to another part of the country and hope that he has work there. Why not bring the services that I need and services that others need all over Alberta and make a community? Instead of being segregated within the disability community, whether you have no legs or half a brain, stand up, rise up against the government, picket at the parliaments, and say no. No. When you include community and say inclusion, you guys forgot me. Disability comes in all forms, all shapes, all sizes, and different severities. It can be invisible or it can be visible. Mine, unfortunately, is invisible, and I get funny, you don't look autistic. Funny, you don't look disabled. All on account of how I sound, act, or portray myself. We need better education to the public, and we need better services to those like me. We're all about cutting services. Well, what happens if those services are the peaks of the world that I need to live? Klein has already cut enough from our pockets. Maybe they should cut from their own pockets. They get paid enough. The UCP is making things another Klein era. Your children, your grandchildren, as long as they are in power, will suffer when they hit over 18. And if they're like me in any given direction or given way, they will be denied access. They will be denied services. And they will be denied jobs. If you think that what I'm saying makes sense, that's because I have to live it, despite whether I have PDD or not. I have friends that are denied just because of their IQ. Let's just make one thing straight. Einstein had autism. The Wright brothers had autism. And so did the head of Apple computers. Anyone that was within disability relations and was taught or thought as odd or different most likely had autism or something relative to autism, even though it was not a true diagnosis. Even to this day, the more I look over and pore over research and or videos based on autism, what I see is kids under the age of 15 that are high functioning, or if you're an adult, anything under 30 and severe, and most of the time male, both in both areas. There is no study, there is no accommodation in schools, there is nothing. There are schools that are denying kids with disabilities and pushing away just because. This is not right. Those kids need just as much equality as anyone else. We have to think on a more broader term when it comes to disabilities. For me, to be job ready means to communicate effectively and know the intricacies of job work relations and or environments. Unfortunately, I do not have tact soft skills. My filter, there is none. I am blunt and society takes me as rude. Guess what? That's autism. It's a neurological cognitive delay for which behavioral standpoints may differ from your own. I will never be 44 years old. I am mentally 16, emotionally, and diagnosed. In my day, mental retardation or mild mental retardation or not otherwise specified was the going blanket gambit for autism or ADHD. Since living in Edmonton for the last 10 years, I have developed a comorbid issue called social anxiety disorder. That is another social interaction type disability that is comorbid, brought on due to environment stress. I didn't have this when I lived in Lethbridge because I had workers like the ones in Peak. Those are the workers that are necessary for me to navigate your world, as I have been saying. Let's make a bunch of worlds better. And if we want to talk equality, inclusion, start including me and those like me.